All right.
And we'll keep it to 30 minutes.
Yeah, we'll get going. Just give me, tell me what you had for lunch today, just so I get some audio levels here.
I didn't have lunch today.
Bourbon.
We just drank your lunch over there?
Yeah.
Hey everyone, it's Kenny here. We really hope you enjoy these podcasts. I'm sure you know that this is a labor of love for us, so we're launching a Patreon sponsorship. Patreon is like crowdfunding, but for supporting your favorite grassroots entertainment. We want to show our love for you as well. We have different donation levels set up, so $1 a month gets you Patreon-only content, such as outtakes and additional audio that take place before and after recording. For $3 a month, we're going to send you a Bourbon Pursuit branded koozie with an awesome tagline that was chosen by our very own followers on Twitter and Facebook. We're also going to send you some Bourbon Pursuit stickers that you can slap on your laptop, guitar case, car window, wherever. For $5 a month, you get a limited edition Bourbon Pursuit t-shirt, as well as get into a monthly drawing for a free bottle of booze or maybe some swag from one of our guests. There's even more awesome stuff. So please, if you like the show, support us, and we're going to send you some cool stuff in return. Visit patreon.com, that's patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit. And we're back with another episode of the Bourbon Pursuit podcast. My name is Kenny, and we are on site today at Michters Distillery in downtown Louisville. And this is actually my first time ever being here. Ryan, what about you?
Yeah, it's my first time as well. We're in Lively Shavely here at Michters. Super excited to be here. I've kind of grown to know Michters over the past couple of years. I was introduced with the Toasted Michters edition, and from there I've kind of dabbled in the few other brands, but I'm excited to talk to Andrea today. I think she's one of those bourbon legends that people may or may not know, and she just blew my mind with this bourbon tasting we just did with, descriptions and verbiage. And,
she's helping us get a little loose for the show right here.
Right,
We just had 5 different pours of, actually six different ryes. So I can't even count anymore. But no, it was fantastic to kind of even go through them all. And we'll touch on each one of them, maybe not. We'll kind of see as we go. But so let's go ahead and we'll get it kicked off. So today on the show we have Andrea Wilson. Andrea is the Vice President and General Manager of Michters Distillery. So Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to do this. I've never done a podcast before, so this is really breaking out of my comfort zone.
It's awesome.
It's a lot easier. Like, there's no cameras on you. You could, I think I was talking to somebody the other day. They're like, should I wear my polo? And I was like, no, you can wear your boxers and underwear. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Nobody cares what you look or smell like today.
That's right. Exactly.
Just to be clear.
Well, we'll see how many more bottles we take down by the end of this up. So let's go ahead. We'll talk about the first kind of question and kind of, dive deep in that brand of yours and kind of talk us a little bit through about your first experience with bourbon or whiskey.
Wow. Okay, so I think my first experience was being a little girl. So I used to spend a tremendous amount of time with my grandfather. My grandfather was a known moonshiner, and but later in his career he had a full upstanding life at American standards, so very upstanding guy. But when I was young, we would go fishing, and we always went to the pond on the Maker's Mark property, which I don't even know if you can access anymore, but it was a really cool place. And with that, we would always stop at the Maker's Mark Distillery, and we'd get to go up and we'd get to taste the mash, and it was very sweet and it was very fun. It was very intriguing. My grandfather would talk to all of his friends, and it was just like this cool thing that we always did, and we did it with my grandfather, which, my grandfather and I had a really special relationship. So that kind of created the intrigue in me. I didn't get to taste the whiskey at that time because, we just didn't do that. But it created enough intrigue in me to want to taste it. It wasn't actually at my grandfather's house that I tasted it. I tasted it at my grandpa's house, which was my mother's father. And they had this beautiful bar in their basement with these cool doors, like you had to go behind the secret doors to get in the bar. And
pull a book
it was
off the
all,
library.
it was all very interesting place. And so you go behind the bar, and I can remember he had Old Fitzgerald, he had Heaven Hill. I mean, I could see the bar just like it it, it was yesterday, and it was so intriguing to me. And so I remember, taking it out to try to take a little sneak, because my parents on my mother's side, they were big into highballs. So they used to drink, that was the classic drink. That's what everybody would have, if people were coming over to their house. And so I thought, well, I'm going to make one of these highballs, because I've seen them make these things 1,000 times. So we're going to do that. So I did it, and I thought, yeah, that's okay. So I poured a little more, 7-Up, I think was what it was. Chaser. Poured a little 7-Up in there. And, to the point where I was like, oh, seems pretty good now. and so that was really probably my first experience. And I'm not going to tell you what age that was, but that was kind of my first experience of, oh, I see why you guys drink these now. They're pretty good.
Right.
But of course, I think a lot of that was actually kind of the sweetness, trying to get it to where I would like it.
We can leave a little bit of that imagination, up to their listeners too. So also talk about what kind of got you into the spirits industry, right? Like, what was that, I don't know what you would call it, a culmination of some sorts that made you want to start driving towards that?
So that was really from my dad's father and my grandfather that I was really close to, that we talked about the visits to Maker's Mark. The thing is when you build a relationship with a family member that shares so many intriguing stories with you. I mean, we would sit and he would tell us about, run-ins with John Dillon and, crazy people trying to, steal from him, and, how he would have to sneak, during certain times to get past certain places, that he knew that they were watching for him, and just all of these little snippets and snags of things that were very intriguing to me as a little one, about, wow, what is this life of mystery and intrigue, that he was living. And while it was totally not legal, I was very intrigued by it. And I think that was really the seed for me to want to learn more. And then as I got older and had more adult conversations with my grandfather about those times in his life, and we would make wine. My grandfather, used to make homemade wine, and we'd make wine, and I learned how to do that. And it was just a continuation throughout my young life of spending time learning about spirits and the history, of Prohibition and what happened, and my grandfather using it as an opportunity to actually, survive, because they were very poor. And all of these different things led me to, gosh, I like spirits, I'd like to really be somehow involved in this, because there's such a rich history and heritage. I live in Kentucky. I'm very proud of Kentucky. I'm proud of it being Kentucky's signature spirit. And I'm like, how do I get involved in that? So, that's what ultimately I think was the impetus for me to kind of say, you know what, I'm going down this road, and I'm going to figure out how to do this.
So what kind of path did you take, right? So because you can learn from your grandpa, but you can't go and apply yourself to go, and I want to work at a distillery. I've been doing underground moonshining for the past 5 years. I'm qualified, right? So
I promise I know what I'm doing.
So I guess what's that next path in regards to education that you took?
Yeah, so I went to school at the University of Louisville and pursued my chemical engineering degree. I graduated with a Master of Chemical Engineering, and then really, I honestly believed that I was going to graduate and I was going to go right to work for a distillery. And sadly, in some ways, that just wasn't the case, because when I went out to try to find those jobs are held by people that have been in the industry for a long time. So
they don't go anywhere.
Exactly.
Or their family lineage kind of thing.
Yeah.
Too, right?
I mean, it's very interesting to me. It was like this whole piece of the industry that I had not recognized, that people get into this industry, and if you have passion and you love what you do, you're going to be doing this for the rest of your life. It is a career industry for sure. And I think that was a bit of a throwback for me, because I was like, well, well, do you know when they're going to retire? Because I'd like to get that job. Exactly. So it just didn't work out for me. So I thought, well, another problem is I didn't have any experience. Great that I had these stories and these tales. I mean, my great uncles worked for Seagram, and I had these stories to tell. But I was like, nobody cares about stories. They want to know what you can do. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go out and I'll get some manufacturing experience, and maybe that'll help me in the meantime until a role opens up. So I went out, and for, a better part of 10 years, I actually worked in manufacturing. And I always tell people I did everything from cookies to oil, because I was fortunate. I worked for a global consulting firm and was able to do a lot of different things and learn how stuff was made. And so that was very helpful to me. And then Diageo rang one day and said, can you do some work for us? So I worked for them for a couple of years, actually at the Stitzel-Weller Distillery. And then they hired me on full time to bring back essentially the Stitzel-Weller facility. So that became a part of, at that time, the North American whiskey strategy for them. And then from there, I had many opportunities within Diageo, so to kind of grow and build my career and knowledge in this industry.
Well, that's awesome. So it seems like you've been doing that already, right? So you've been growing that. You are the first woman to be a chair on the KDA. So kind of talk about what that means to you.
Yeah, so I was the first woman to chair the KDA in 2009, and when I first my first board meeting at the KDA was, I think, 2004, 2005, something like that. And it was interesting because I walked in and it was a bit like all the heads in the room turned, all the heads in the room were male. And it was sort of like, who are you? And in fact, those were the words. Who are you and what do you need? And I said, okay. On the inside, I have to be honest, I was probably extremely intimidated, because, they were icons in the industry sitting in that room. And I thought, okay, girl, you need to suck it up and put your big boots on because, you're going to have to be in with these guys. So I came in and I sat down, and I think, the point for me was, I need to build credibility with these gentlemen. I need to help be a part of something bigger than me, and I don't need to let the past dictate the future, and let's just go. And so I learned, I built relationships, I did everything that I could to absorb as much information as I could and learn from the people who'd been in the roles before me. And so when it came 2009 and the opportunity for me to chair was presented, it was like, it was a very powerful thing for me, but I didn't take it lightly. I wanted the opportunity to think strategically for the organization and collaborate with my industry colleagues at the time to really build something that was a roadmap for the next 5 years. And that ended up being the core of my chairmanship, was the focus on doing the first bourbon strategy for the Kentucky Distillers Association in 2009. And then when we completed it, the first 5-year strategy in 2014, it was interesting because I think we completed 98% of what we had laid out for 5 years. So, it wasn't just me. We were all very successful, but it was a definite point in my career where I felt not only like the opportunity presented itself to really have an impact, but that I was, there was a shared recognition of all of us as colleagues to say we need to take the bourbon industry forward, and how do we need to make that happen? And so that was a very exciting time for me.
What were some of those missions or goals that you all set out in Dukem?
There was a lot of them. One that really rings true for me was that at that time, the bourbon industry is very hot right now. There's a lot of discussion. Certainly state government is very excited about it. It's a signature industry. It's been
They're ready
called
to cash
that.
in on us.
Yeah, all of this excitement. But at that time, that wasn't the case so much. There was a definite need for knowledge and education just about the industry itself. I mean, it's a $3 billion industry for the state of Kentucky. It employs, close to 16,000 people in the state. And it's a very powerful industry in terms of, delivering great quality products to people all over the world. So the touch is massive. And but I don't think that really resonated with, both just the common consumer in the state of Kentucky, our, state government. I think people who were living it, we knew it, but there just wasn't a common understanding. So that's an example of one of the big things was education, getting, a collective understanding of our state government to help us empower this greater than us kind of attitude towards bourbon such that we could grow it in a stellar way. I mean, now we're seeing 1 million visitors to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. It's this amazing thing that's happened, but that doesn't happen without the work of a lot of people in this industry working for these individual companies out there every day, telling their story, telling their message, educating consumers. So it's it's a very collaborative effort.
Hence the reason why we're having you on the show today, right?
That's right.
So talk about how all that led to your current role here at Michters.
At Diageo, I got to do, had the opportunity to do a lot of things while I was there. I did some whiskey planning for a while. I oversaw some plants. I ended up being the director of North American Distillation and Maturing. Then I moved over to whiskey strategy and, had a great opportunity to work on the future storyline for Bulleit in terms of the new distillery that's going in Shelbyville, and all of these great opportunities presented themselves. And then sadly, as oftentimes happens in big corporate business, there was a corporate downsizing, and they said, we need you to finish this strategy, and then we have some other opportunities for you in Canada. And I said, that doesn't really work for me. I'm a bourbon girl. So, right. And this is my home, and this is where I need to be. So we parted ways. It was very amicable. I have a huge debt of gratitude to Diageo. But it was an opportunity in my life to say, okay, what's next? And really for me, Joe Malioco and this family offered me a huge opportunity to just make great quality whiskey. A lot of times what you have, it's just the way it is in big corporate world. Sometimes it's make the best whiskey at the lowest cost. Really, this family is focused on just can you make the best whiskey? Mm-hmm. Show us what to do to make the best whiskey. And so there are a lot of things that we do here, such as entry at 103 proof. That's our everyday entry proof. Toasting and charring barrels. Custom chill filtration, where every one of our products has a custom filtration protocol associated with it. And then, heat cycling our whiskeys. These are all things that they're very expensive to do, but they really impart a wonderful, beautiful house family style of rich, flavorful, no burn in our whiskeys. So that story in and of itself, you can imagine being a chemical engineer, and there is a geeky side to me where I like to get into all these little details, and the attention to detail here is so extremely powerful that for me, there was no doubt this was the place I needed to be at this point in my career to really do what I love to do. So, and be part of building a brand and leaving a new legacy. So that's what kind of led me to Michters, and that's what I do now.
So you talked about those little things that you do, and I work in the tech industry. We call them nerd knobs. Right?
Nerd knobs.
Yeah. Okay. All right, then. Settle down over there.
Nerd alert.
Yeah. So give us, we had a good opportunity for you to tell a little bit about the history of Michters. Kind of give some of the listeners an understanding of, where did it start? I know it started in Pennsylvania, but how did it then end up getting revived here in Kentucky? And then, where the name come from, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So the heritage of Michters is really in Pennsylvania. It started there in 1753. There was a Swiss Mennonite farmer, John Schenck, who was making rye whiskey there. And there's actually some Pennsylvania lore around General George Washington visiting that distillery, purchasing rye whiskey for his troops at Valley Forge, and that's all very interesting. And then that it changed hands. It went to Baumburgers. It closed during Prohibition. And then in the 50s, it was picked up by a gentleman, Lou Foreman, and he actually was credited with renaming the brand after his two boys, Michael and Peter. So there's a nice little family nuance there about, naming a brand after your two boys. And then they carried on. And in 1989, unfortunately and sadly, the family went bankrupt. So the distillery was abandoned. The trademark was abandoned. And it was really kind of sad. The Malioco family, Joe Malioco specifically, he had the fortunate opportunity to distribute the brand as a young man in distribution in the 70s. Well, one day he's like, well, what happened to Michters? I can't get Michters anymore. Where's it at? Found out that, it was all but gone. And so he convinced his brothers, and they collectively decided to acquire the trademark. So they did that in the 90s. And they started about a strategy, and it was really kind of a three-tiered strategy. The first part of that strategy was, well, you're going to bring a label back. So in order to bring a label back, you got to have some whiskey. At that time, the 90s, it certainly was not 2016 and the bourbon boom we're seeing today. So there's plenty of old whiskey sitting around in warehouses. And so they were able to go out and purchase some mature whiskey and bring the label back. But of course, it's not good enough just to do that. You've got to be laying down product. So they worked on their mash bill, they worked on their yeast, they came up with their recipe. And the objective was, let's make a great American whiskey as good, if not better, than, the old Michters heritage in Pennsylvania. So that's what they did. That's what they set out to do. But they didn't have the assets to be able to do that at that time, nor did they have the money to put forward for the assets. So they went to a contract producer, and they said, here's our recipe. Can you make this for a fee? And they said yes. And they were able to do that. Of course, at that time as well, and for many years, there was capacity in the industry. Today, no capacity.
Right.
Then, capacity.
They didn't know what they had back then. They wish they had it back.
So they were able to, contract for many years while they were, making plans for a future. And all that contract production was here in Kentucky. And when they had to make the decision, in the very beginning about where they were going to produce their whiskey and all of those things, it was to do it in Kentucky because there's no better place, right? This is where all the talent is. This is where the support resources are, whether you need lawyers, finance people, environmental people. Everybody here knows about whiskey, so where else would you go? So they made the decision early on to come to Kentucky and seek those relationships in Kentucky, and then ultimately their final stage of their strategy has become complete now, where they've built. We have a 67,000 square foot facility here in Shively, Kentucky, and it houses our processing, bottling, distilling, and one warehouse on site. We have a 32-inch column still and copper pot doubler here, which can also function as a thumper. We have over 11,000 pounds of copper in our distillery. So it's stunning. It's beautiful.
A burglar's dream.
Yeah. So we do have an alarm system, by the way. So, but it's just this amazing place. And, I really look at it sometimes. And when you walk through it, it's really very much like it's a very state-of-the-art distillery. And I don't mean that by virtue of we have thousands of control systems here and we have one person working here pressing a button. That's not what I'm saying. We have, a small staff here. It's a lean staff. We have 16 people that do everything from make the coffee to get the product out the door at the end of the day.
Wow.
So it's an amazing team. And we're all touching all aspects of this operation, which I think makes it very unique. But
I think they call it a small batch staff is what they call it.
Yeah. Small batch staff, yes.
Cute, Kenny.
I like it. I'm going to start using that. It's different. It's not old. It doesn't have, some of the kind of the patina on it of being a really old facility, but it's kind of like the new generation of distilling, and its beauty and its cleanliness and the quality of what we're doing here is just an amazing thing. So
there's not going to be a lot of people that are becoming here to the distillery. You have something that's going to be going on in Whiskey Row coming to downtown Louisville. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So we have the old Fort Nelson building in downtown Louisville, and for some of your listeners maybe that are familiar with it, that project was supposed to be done in 2013. It has been on quite the journey. The building was
everybody's problem on Whiskey Row.
Yeah. The building was in terrible structural disrepair. Unfortunately, sadly, there was a couple of people seriously injured in the building. We purchased the building with the intention to do a full preservation project. So this was not, I'm actually very proud of the family for the decisions that they made to preserve this building, because a lot of times now what you're seeing is, retain the facade, get rid of the back, and rebuild, because that is a more cost-effective option in some cases. It's hard for people to believe, but it is. And they had to basically create a steel cage and place it down inside the building and then pin everything to it and redo the floors throughout the building. So all of that work is now complete. Now you
can jump on it, right?
Yeah. You can walk confidently on the floors.
So it is fully primed now and ready for the interior details to make a consumer experience. So our intention now is we're working through the details of doing an educational experience down there. We actually were able to purchase the old stills from Pennsylvania and the old Cypress fermenters. So we'll be putting that equipment in down there. And we're looking forward to getting on with the construction down there and getting all of that done. So it's been a long journey, but hopefully within the next few years we'll see it come to fruition.
That's awesome. That sounds like it's going to be a great destination, because we've been talking to a lot of people, including the Fraser Museum, all these people that are doing a lot of great things, and it's going to be a great tourist destination for a lot of people. So one of the things that we did before we started this recording here is we were sampling pretty much everything you had to run the gamut over here, right? So you have 4 core products that you would see on the shelf as soon as you go into any liquor store. Tell people what those products are just real quick.
Yeah. So we have everything we do here is either small batch or single barrel, and our small batch for us is only 24 barrels in a batch. So it is very small. We're very disciplined. It takes a lot of attention to detail to produce at that small level.
It should be
consistent.
16 like your employees.
Okay. But we produce a small batch bourbon. We produce a single barrel rye. We produce a sour mash whiskey. And we produce an unblended American whiskey. And May 1st, we're actually releasing our barrel strength rye, which is a special limited edition release. Paul Bacalt, who is a world-renowned whiskey writer, actually named it as one of the top 10 whiskeys in the world. So very exciting. So if you get the opportunity to purchase that, take the opportunity to taste it, because it's fabulous.
All right, so we'll take those 4 core ones. Choose your favorite child.
Bourbon is my favorite child.
Bourbon's your favorite
Bourbon's
child?
my go-to. Yeah, it's my go-to.
That was an easy one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was like throwing a softball. So then there's also some I mean, these are all considered by the standard definition super premium bourbons, but I don't know. But then you have some that are what we would call extremely premium bourbons, right? So you've got your 25-year rye, 20-year bourbon, 10-year rye, 10-year bourbon, and then the celebration, right? So you got some that are crazy that are out there, and I know you've had the opportunity to sample each one of those. So now this might be a little bit tougher. So now choose a favorite child out of those 5.
20-year bourbon is my favorite.
20-year bourbon. I think we could all probably agree.
I had my first 20-year last year.
We
last
saw
weekend,
that one
and it was
coming.
amazing.
Yeah, we kind of saw that one coming.
The thing that I love so much about the 20-year bourbon, and I've heard tell, there's kind of the mystery guy, Willie Pratt, behind all of this, and he gets to decide when things are going to be released, but I've heard tell that it looks like we may be releasing 20-year bourbon again this year. So no guarantees, but it sounds like that's going to happen. So I'm excited about it.
Good, because I hear it's delicious. I haven't had it yet, so I'm waiting for my bottle to finally hit a shelf that I can snag. Right.
As it oxidizes, it really changes. So that's the real beauty of it to me, is that it's a very complex liquid. It has a brilliant finish on it. But then as it develops in your glass over time, it changes, and that's what makes it so special, I think.
You had another kind of thing you talked about during our tasting, that a lot of stuff that you drink has reminiscent feelings to you, right? So at least with me, I don't know, I love just taking in the moment, and I don't really think about what has happened in the past, but kind of talk about what kind of when you smell or you nose a bourbon, you taste it, kind of how that reacts and kind of changes your mentality towards it.
Yeah, so I'm very I associate things. So always in my life, when I've drank bourbon, I associate it with celebrations and sometimes sadness in my life. And so there are memories that, certain flavors and certain smells evoke for me. And so, for example, when I drink the American whiskey, because there's this certain sweetness about it, and it's easy to drink, and there's a certain kind of fun about it that really is reminiscent for me of going to the Kentucky State Fair and having a big old ice cream or cotton candy or any of those kinds of things. It's just it's not about relation of taste or anything like that. It's about the experience itself. Those are joyful memories, and when I drink American whiskey, it makes me feel good. It's fun. It's it's uplifting. It's easy to drink. It's just a fun spirit. And same thing with bourbon. I mean, bourbon for me, when I smell it, it reminds me so much of like baking with my grandmother. Well, certainly somebody, would say, oh yeah, that's because of the buttery character or the caramelly character. And sure, it's probably those things, but it's more about just those are happy times. And when I drink bourbon, I have these happy experiences, that I relate to, that makes it's sort of a calming effect. It's a very enjoyable experience for me.
So last question, what sort of legacy or impression do you think you want to leave on the industry?
I think the legacy that I really want to leave is, making it better than it was when I came. And that's not to say, there was something wrong with it. It's just being a part of continuing to evolve the business, continuing to open a consumer experience as part of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, educating more consumers, creating great new products to help them understand their palate, finding products that, relate to every consumer. That's really what I want to be involved in, and that's the legacy that I want to leave, being a part of building the Michters brand and educating consumers, I guess.
So what's next for Michters then? What's on the horizon?
Can't tell you.
How come everybody says that?
Well, I mean, I let a little note there about, the potential for 20 this year. I think, we've certainly had some discussions about the potential for another celebration. I think that could be very exciting, for us as a brand. I mean, celebration was something that was extremely special, especially for like when you look at the old cognacs and the Scotch whiskeys and how they've used these beautiful blending techniques to create these really special releases that, American whiskey didn't see anything like that before. So creating the celebration project many years ago, that was something really special for Willie and Joe to do together, to take 20-year whiskeys, 30-year whiskeys, bourbons, ryes, and create this beautiful experience for a consumer at a very high level. That's something very rare. It's not found too much in the American whiskey industry, if at all. And so I look forward to that opportunity happening again, because I'd love to be a part of that. So be very exciting if we get to do it again.
Well, that's awesome. So, Andrea, I just want to say thank you again for coming on the show today. Yeah. It was, like I said, we can put another checkbox off, another distillery off the list, right?
Yeah, we're getting them. We're running out of people. No, there's so many people. It's such a cool industry. Like there's so many people that, of course, there's the master distillers, but there's people like Andrea that make this industry run. And not a lot of people know, so I'm glad we get to introduce people like this to our listeners.
Yes, it was very fantastic. So again, thank you for being on the show today. If you like what you hear, make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you can, please go support the show at patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit.
Yep, and if you have any show suggestions, feedback, criticism, we'll take it. And we'll see you next time.
This podcast of Bourbon Pursuit is in partnership with thewhiskeywash.com, a lifestyle website for news and reviews for people who like whiskey, and for those who think a life without whiskey has no style, thewhiskeywash.com.